The small scout ship tumbled through space like a dying bird. Captain Vex pressed his three-fingered hands against the control panel and watched the warning lights flash red across the bridge. His ship was breaking apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The engine had failed 2 days ago, and now the life support systems were giving up too. Through the front window, he could see a blue and green planet growing larger. The other crew members had already passed out from the thin air, but Vex kept his eyes open. He had to see where they would crash. The planet looked dead from space. Ancient records called it Earth, but nobody had visited it for hundreds of thousands of years. The Galactic Federation had marked it as empty and forgotten. Most people believed that the humans who once lived there were gone forever. Vex had never seen a human, and neither had anyone else he knew. They were just stories now. Old tales about a strange species that had vanished before the Federation was even formed. The ship hit the atmosphere and started to burn. Metal pieces flew off and spun away into the darkness. Vex felt the heat through the hull and knew he only had minutes left. The planet's surface rushed up toward him. He could see mountains and valleys and something else. Strange crystal towers that glowed with soft light. They covered the land like a vast city made of glass and diamond. The crystals pulsed with energy and seemed to reach deep underground. The ship crashed into the crystal field with a sound like thunder. The impact sent vibrations through the ground that traveled for miles in every direction. Deep below the surface, something felt those vibrations. Something that had been waiting for a very long time. Daeho Kim opened his eyes for the first time in 800,000 years. The awakening chamber filled with warm light, and the clear liquid around him drained away through hidden tubes. His body felt strange and heavy after so long in the great sleep, but his mind was clear. The quantum computer connected to his brain downloaded millions of years of stored information in seconds. He understood immediately what had happened and why he was awake. The chamber door slid open and Daeho stepped out onto cold metal floors. The awakening center stretched in all directions like an underground city. Thousands of other chambers lined the walls, but most remained dark and sealed. Only a few dozen had activated, and their occupants were starting to move. The computer had chosen carefully who to wake first. Engineers and soldiers and scientists who would be needed for what came next. Yoonji Park emerged from her chamber nearby and stumbled slightly as gravity affected her body. She had been the chief quantum engineer before the Great Sleep, and her knowledge would be vital now. Her dark eyes scanned the awakening center and processed what she saw. The technology around them looked far more advanced than what they had left behind so long ago. While they slept, their artificial intelligence systems had never stopped working and learning and building. Byung-Soo Lee climbed out of his chamber with steady movements that showed his military training. His body adapted quickly to being awake, and his mind focused on immediate priorities. As the former Earth Defense Commander, he knew they would need to assess threats and prepare defenses. The crashed ship above meant they were no longer alone and hidden. Daeho walked to the main control console where holographic displays showed him everything the computers had learned during their long sleep. The information was almost too much to understand at once. Humanity had not just survived underground. They had evolved in ways that seemed impossible. Their technology now operated on principles that could reshape matter itself and bend the laws of physics. The artificial intelligence spoke to them through speakers built into the walls. Its voice was calm and familiar like an old friend. It explained that while humans slept, their machines had run countless simulations and experiments. They had discovered how to manipulate quantum fields and control energy at the molecular level. They had learned to create pocket dimensions and travel faster than light without using conventional engines. Most importantly, they had prepared for the day when humanity would need to return to the stars. Yoonji studied the technical readouts with growing amazement. The numbers showed power levels that should have been impossible, and energy sources that could fuel entire solar systems. She understood enough to know that humans now possessed technology that made them like gods compared to other species. The responsibility of that power made her feel both excited and terrified. More chambers activated as the awakening process continued. Engineers and pilots and doctors emerged to find a world completely changed from what they remembered. The underground, Cities extended for thousands of miles in all directions. Massive factories had built ships and weapons and tools during the long sleep. Everything was ready and waiting for human hands to use it. Byung-soo examined the military reports and felt his heart skip. The defensive systems that surrounded Earth could destroy entire fleets without effort. Weapons that could disintegrate matter, and shields that could absorb any attack. But the displays also showed disturbing information about the galaxy above. Old enemies were stirring and new threats were growing. The crashed ship was just the beginning of much larger problems. The group made their way through corridors lined with glowing panels toward the surface access lifts. As they rose up through miles of solid rock, they passed level after level of sleeping humans. Billions of people still rested in their chambers while automated systems maintained their bodies and minds. The awakening protocol would continue slowly and carefully. Too many people awake at once would cause chaos and confusion. They emerged onto the surface through hidden doors disguised as crystal formations. The real Earth spread out before them under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The continents had shifted during their long sleep, and new mountains had formed. But life had returned too. Plants and animals that had been extinct now filled forests, and oceans that had been restored by their caretaker machines. The crashed Federation ship lay smoking in a crater half a mile away. Daeho could see movement around the wreckage and knew that at least some of the crew had survived. This would be humanity's first contact with other intelligent life in almost 1,000,000 years. Everything they did next would determine the future. Of both species, Yoonji activated a portable scanner and analyzed the alien ship. The technology was crude compared to what humans now possessed, but it showed that other species had continued to develop during their absence. The Federation existed and controlled much of the galaxy. Hundreds of different alien races worked, together in a loose alliance that had lasted for millennia. Byung-soo studied the tactical implications of the situation. They could easily destroy the crashed ship and any evidence that humans still existed, but that would only delay the inevitable. Eventually more ships would come looking, and the secret would be revealed. Better to control the revelation and use it to their advantage. The three humans walked across the crystal plains toward the crash site. Behind them, the hidden doors sealed shut, and the surface returned to looking empty and lifeless. They carried devices that could translate alien languages and communicate with any species they encountered. After 800,000 years of preparation, humanity was finally ready to return to the stars. But they were no longer the weak and primitive species that had once struggled to survive. They had become something far greater and far more dangerous. The galaxy was about to discover that the humans they had forgotten were now powerful enough to reshape reality itself. The age of human dominance was about to begin. Young Hee-song stood on the bridge of the first human starship to leave Earth in 800,000 years. The vessel moved through space in ways that defied everything other species knew about physics. It bent space and time around itself like water flowing around a stone. Stars that should have been years apart flashed past in minutes. The ship existed in multiple dimensions at once and could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. 3 months had passed since the Federation scout ship crashed on Earth. The alien survivors had been treated with care and respect, while human diplomats learned their languages and customs. Captain Vex had recovered from his injuries and spent weeks trying to understand the beings who had saved his life. He could barely comprehend the technology he saw around him. Humans had healing devices that could repair any wound in seconds, and computers that seemed to think faster than biological minds. The Federation capital world of New Centaura appeared on the main display as their ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The planet was covered in massive cities that stretched from pole to pole. Billions of different alien species lived and worked together in structures that reached into the clouds. Space stations orbited overhead like metal moons, and ship traffic moved in organized patterns between the stars. Young Hee had spent her career before the Great Sleep studying alien cultures and diplomatic relations. Now she carried the weight of representing all humanity to a galaxy that had forgotten they existed. Her team included linguists and psychologists and cultural experts who had studied every piece of information about Federation society. They understood that first impressions would determine whether humans were seen as friends or threats. Tae-min Choi commanded the human ship with confidence, born from years of training and preparation. His crew operated systems that could create or destroy on a scale that terrified him sometimes. The weapons on their ship could crack planets in half, and their defenses could absorb the energy of an entire star. But they had come in peace with gifts of knowledge and technology that could benefit every species they encountered. The Federation Defense Fleet detected their approach and moved to intercept. Hundreds of warships took positions around the human vessel and demanded identification and surrender. Their weapons charged with energy discharges that lit up space like artificial lightning. The alien commanders had never seen anything like the human ship and assumed it must be hostile. Young-hee opened communication channels and transmitted peaceful greetings in every Federation language. She explained that humans had returned from a long isolation and wished to establish diplomatic relations. The Federation officers listened with growing confusion and disbelief. According to their records, humans had been extinct for hundreds of millennia. Some species had never heard of them at all. Admiral Krex commanded the defense fleet from his massive flagship. The six-armed reptilian warrior had fought battles across the galaxy and feared nothing that flew between the stars. But the human ship made his scales crawl with unease. His sensors could not penetrate its hull or understand how it moved. When his weapons targeted the vessel, their energy beams simply bent around it like light passing through a prism. The tension increased as more Federation ships arrived to surround the humans. Some commanders wanted to attack immediately while others urged caution. The human vessel remained still and non-threatening, but its very presence seemed to warp space around it. Instruments throughout the fleet gave impossible readings that made no scientific sense. Chancellor Vorth ruled the Federation from his palace on New Centaura. The ancient insectoid leader had guided the Alliance for over 2 centuries and seen many strange events. But when reports reached him about the human ship, his 4 compound eyes widened with shock. He remembered the oldest legends about a species that had once challenged the natural order of the universe. Most scholars believed those stories were just myths. Young-hee requested permission to meet with Federation leaders and demonstrate human intentions through actions rather than words. She proposed a simple test that would prove their peaceful goals. The human ship moved toward a nearby star system where a dying sun threatened to destroy several inhabited worlds. Federation science had declared the situation hopeless and begun evacuating millions of refugees. The human vessel approached the failing star and extended devices that looked like metal flowers. Energy flowed between the ship and the sun in patterns of light that made space itself seem to sing. Slowly, the star began to stabilize as human technology fed it new fuel and repaired the damage caused by age and radiation. Within hours, the dying sun blazed with renewed life and the threatened planets were safe. The Federation fleet watched in stunned silence as humans casually performed what their greatest scientists considered impossible. Repairing a star required power levels beyond anything they could imagine and understanding of physics that seemed like magic. The demonstration proved that humans possessed technology so advanced that they could reshape reality on a cosmic scale. News of the event spread across the galaxy faster than light through quantum communication networks. Every species in the Federation learned that humans had returned and brought with them abilities that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. Some worlds celebrated the miracle of the saved star system, while others prepared for war against beings who seemed like gods. Young-hee and her diplomatic team were finally granted permission to land on New Centaura. Their shuttle descended through layers of artificial atmosphere toward a spaceport designed to accommodate ships from hundreds of different worlds. Alien crowds gathered to watch the arrival of beings that many had thought were just legends. The humans walked among species that ranged from crystalline energy beings to massive plant creatures that communicated through chemical signals. The diplomatic meetings that followed changed the course of galactic history. Young-hee presented gifts of human technology that revolutionized entire civilizations overnight. Medical devices that could cure any disease and extend lifespans by thousands of years. Energy sources that provided unlimited clean power without fuel or waste. Transportation systems that could move objects instantly across vast distances. But With each demonstration, the gap between human and alien capabilities became more obvious. The Federation had spent millennia developing technology that humans now considered primitive and obsolete. What took alien scientists decades to build, humans could create in minutes, using devices no larger than their hands. The psychological impact was devastating to species that had considered themselves advanced. Some Federation members embraced the humans as saviors and teachers. They begged for access to advanced technology and offered their entire worlds in exchange for human knowledge. Other species felt threatened and humiliated by the comparison. They formed secret alliances to study human weaknesses and find ways to level the playing field through force if necessary. Chancellor Vorth tried to maintain unity within the Federation, but the arrival of humans had shattered the careful balance of power that had existed for centuries. Species that had been equals now found themselves divided into those who could understand human technology and those who could not. Jealousy and fear spread like poison through diplomatic channels that had once carried messages of cooperation. Admiral Krex became the leader of those who viewed humans as a threat to galactic stability. He argued that no species should possess such overwhelming technological advantages, and that humans must be contained before they could impose their will on everyone else. His followers began developing weapons specifically designed to counter human abilities, though they had little hope of success. Taimin observed the growing tensions with concern, but also determination. His ship could destroy the entire Federation, fleet without effort, but doing so would make humans into the tyrants that some aliens already believed them to be. The challenge was finding a way to use their power responsibly, while still protecting human interests and maintaining peace. The situation became more complicated when deep space monitors detected massive energy signatures moving toward Federation space. Something large and hostile was approaching from the galaxy's edge and would arrive within months. The readings matched patterns from ancient archives that told of horrors that had once consumed entire star systems, an enemy that humans had faced before during the dark times that led to their great sleep. Young He realized that humanity's return was not coincidence, but preparation. Their long slumber had been more than just evolution and advancement. It had been training for a war that was about to begin again. The question was whether the fractured Federation could unite with humans against a common enemy, or if old fears and prejudices would doom them all to destruction. The galaxy stood at a crossroads where the choices made in the next few days would determine the fate of every living world. Humanity had awakened just in time to face their greatest challenge yet. Jinwu Nam walked through the ruins of an ancient human city, buried deep beneath the Martian surface. His archaeological team had discovered the site while searching for clues about humanity's lost history. The tunnels and chambers stretched for miles underground and contained artifacts that told a story no living human remembered. The walls were covered with symbols and images that showed a great war fought across multiple star systems, an enemy so terrible that humanity had chosen to sleep rather than face extinction. The deeper Jinwu explored the ruins, the more disturbing the evidence became. Battle records showed human fleets being destroyed by creatures that consumed entire planets. Weapons of unimaginable power had failed to stop an invasion that turned solar systems into empty voids. The final entries spoke of a desperate plan to hide underground and wait for the enemy to move on to other galaxies. So Young Kim studied the alien artifacts they had recovered from the deepest vaults. The objects seemed to be made from living metal that pulsed with its own heartbeat. Her bioweapons laboratory on Earth's moon was equipped with the most advanced containment systems humanity could build, but the artifacts still made her nervous. They radiated energy signatures that matched no known elements and responded to human thoughts in ways that suggested intelligence. The artifacts had been taken from destroyed devourer ships that crashed on Earth during the ancient war. So Young's analysis revealed that the enemy was not just another alien species but something far worse. They were biological machines that converted matter into more of themselves. Every world they consumed made them stronger and more numerous. They were like a plague that spread from star to star, leaving nothing alive behind them. General Hyun-Soo Yu commanded Earth's reformed military from a command center built inside the planet's core. The walls around him displayed tactical information from across the galaxy, as human agents gathered intelligence on current threats. What they discovered made the ancient war look small by comparison. The Devourers had not just survived their defeat 800,000 years ago. They had been growing stronger in the empty spaces between galaxies. Deep space monitoring stations detected the first signs of their return, massive energy signatures moving faster than light toward the galaxy's outer rim. The patterns matched exactly what human records described from the ancient war. Ships the size of moons that could drain the life from entire star systems. The enemy that had once driven humanity underground was coming back to finish what they started. Dr. Kessel worked in his laboratory on the Federation capital world, trying to understand samples of human technology. The crystalline devices seemed simple on the surface, but contained complexity that hurt his brain to contemplate. Even the smallest human tool operated on principles that Federation science could not explain. Matter transformation at the quantum level and energy manipulation that violated known physical laws. The Federation's greatest scientists had spent months studying human gifts and made almost no progress. The technology was so far advanced that they lacked the basic knowledge needed to understand how it worked. It was like showing fire to creatures that had never seen light. They could observe the effects, but could not comprehend the underlying mechanisms. News of the approaching Devourer fleet reached Federation space through human intelligence networks. The revelation that humanity's ancient enemy had returned caused panic among species that had never heard of such threats. Those who studied the old archives discovered records of entire civilizations that had vanished without trace during the time humans called the Dark Age. Chancellor Vorth called an emergency session of the Federation Council to address the crisis. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered in the Great Assembly Chamber on New Centera. The atmosphere was tense, as species that had been arguing about human influence suddenly faced a threat that could destroy them all. Fear replaced political concerns as the scale of the danger became clear. Young Hee-song addressed the assembled delegates and shared everything humanity knew about the Devourers. She showed them images from ancient battles and explained how the enemy operated. The creatures were not just predators but something worse. They were anti-life itself given physical form. Everything they touched turned to dead matter that served their endless hunger. The Federation military leaders listened with growing horror as Young Hee described Devourer capabilities. Ships that could phase through solid matter and weapons that dissolved atomic bonds. Creatures that could survive in the vacuum of space and reproduce by consuming any form of energy they encountered. Most terrifying was their ability to learn and adapt to any attack used against them. Admiral Krex asked the question that everyone was thinking. Why had the Devourers waited so long to return, and what did they want with the galaxy now? Young Hee explained that human analysis suggested the creatures had been feeding in other galaxies while waiting for their ancient enemies to awaken. The return of active human technology had drawn their attention back to this region of space. Jinwu's archaeological teams made more discoveries that filled in missing pieces of the puzzle. The ancient war had not ended with humanity's victory as most believed. Instead, humans had made a terrible sacrifice to drive the Devourers away. They had triggered a weapon that destroyed multiple star systems, including many of their own colonies. The devastation had been so complete that both sides had been forced to retreat and recover. The weapon was called the Null Generator, and it worked by creating zones where matter could not exist. Entire solar systems had been erased from reality, leaving empty voids that still showed scars in spacetime. The device had been so dangerous that humanity had hidden the plans deep underground and sworn never to use it again. But now they might have no choice. So Young's research revealed that the Devourer artifacts were not just remnants of old battles. They were seeds left behind by the enemy forces that had been programmed to activate when human technology reached a certain level. The creatures had known that humanity would eventually wake from their long sleep and had prepared accordingly. Across the galaxy, similar artifacts were beginning to stir and send signals to their creators. The first Devourer scout ships arrived at the galaxy's edge and immediately began attacking isolated star systems. Federation monitoring stations went silent one by one as the enemy advanced. The creatures moved faster than any conventional fleet and left nothing but empty space in their wake. Planets that had supported life for billions of years became cold rocks orbiting dead stars. General Hyun-Soo mobilized human fleets to intercept the advancing Devourers, but knew they faced an almost impossible challenge. The enemy had learned from their previous defeat and adapted their tactics accordingly. They avoided direct confrontation with human ships and instead focused on consuming undefended worlds to build their strength. Human technology gave them advantages the Federation could not match, but the Devourers had advantages too. They could replace losses quickly by converting captured matter into new ships and soldiers. Every world they consumed made them exponentially stronger, while their enemies grew weaker from prolonged fighting. The political situation in Federation space became increasingly unstable as species blamed each other for the crisis. Some worlds accused humans of bringing the Devourers back through their advanced technology. Others demanded immediate access to human weapons regardless of the consequences. Fear and desperation drove former allies apart just when unity was most needed. Taemin's ship was among the first to engage Devourer forces in direct combat. The battle took place in an empty star system that the enemy was using as a staging area. Human quantum weapons could damage Devourer ships, but the creatures adapted quickly to each attack. What worked once became useless after the enemy analyzed and countered the technique. The fighting revealed that this war would be unlike anything that had come before. Both sides had evolved during their long separation and developed new capabilities that made the conflict incredibly destructive. Entire star systems became battlegrounds where the laws of physics were bent and broken by forces beyond normal comprehension. Jin Wu made a final discovery in the deepest ruins of the ancient city. Hidden behind walls of quantum encryption, he found the true reason humanity had chosen the Great Sleep. They had not been running from the Devourers but preparing for their return. Everything that had happened over the past 800,000 years had been part of a plan to gain the power needed to win the war permanently. The revelation changed everything about how humans understood their own history and destiny. They were not accidental survivors of an ancient catastrophe, but the carefully prepared guardians of all life in the galaxy. The question now was whether they had become powerful enough to fulfill that destiny, or if they would face the same defeat that had driven them underground so long ago. Minho Kang stood on the bridge of the human flagship, watching as the greatest space battle in galactic history unfolded around him. His fleet of 200 vessels faced over 10,000 Devourer ships in the Kepler system, while Federation forces attacked from 3 different directions. The enemy had grown stronger with each world they consumed, and now commanded technology that matched human capabilities in many areas. The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and neither side could gain a decisive advantage. Human quantum weapons tore through Devourer hulls, but the creatures rebuilt their ships faster than they could be destroyed. Federation vessels exploded under enemy fire while alien crews died in the vacuum of space. The system's star flickered as both sides drew energy from it to power their weapons. Jin Lee coordinated the political and intelligence aspects of the war from her command center on Earth's moon. The crisis had shattered the Galactic Federation into dozens of smaller factions that fought as much among themselves as against the Devourers. Some species had allied with humanity, while others declared independence and tried to stay neutral. A third group actively worked against human efforts, believing they posed a greater long-term threat than the ancient enemy. The Empress Zala commanded the largest of the breakaway factions from her mobile fortress ship. The proud feline warrior led 30 star systems that had seceded from the Federation after humans shared their technology selectively. She believed that humanity planned to conquer the galaxy once the Devourer threat was eliminated, and wanted to build independent defenses against both enemies. Her fleets attacked human supply lines and communication networks while claiming to fight for galactic freedom. The sabotage weakened human war efforts and allowed Devourers to advance faster than they might have otherwise. Zala justified her actions by arguing that future slavery under human rule would be worse than immediate death from the ancient enemy. Ji-hoon Park worked desperately in his research facility, trying to develop new weapons that could penetrate Devourer defenses. The enemy adapted so quickly to human attacks that each new technology became obsolete within days of its first use. His team had created devices that could manipulate time and space, but even these proved insufficient against creatures that seemed to exist outside normal physical laws. The breakthrough came when Ji-hoon studied the quantum signatures of Devourer ships and realized they were not entirely real. The creatures existed partially in other dimensions and could phase between different states of matter at will. This explained why they could ignore most attacks and pass through solid barriers. But it also revealed a potential weakness that human technology might be able to exploit. The Devourer Queen emerged from the darkness between galaxies, commanding a fleet that dwarfed anything seen before. Her ship was larger than most moons, and contained technology that had been perfected over millions of years of conquest. She had once been human herself, but had chosen a different evolutionary path during the ancient war. The transformation had given her immortality and power, but at the cost of everything that made her human. Minho received reports of the Queen's arrival with mixed feelings of dread and anticipation. His intelligence analysts had suspected that the Devourer forces were being guided by a single intelligence but had not imagined it might be human in origin. The psychological impact on human forces was devastating, as they realized they were fighting a corrupted version of themselves. The Queen's first action was to contact human leaders directly through quantum communication networks. She offered them a choice between joining her crusade to consume all matter in the universe or facing total annihilation. Her voice carried traces of humanity but distorted by eons of alien influence. She claimed that organic life was just a temporary stage in cosmic evolution, and that true immortality could only be achieved through unity with the Devourers. Young He Song led the diplomatic response to the Queen's ultimatum. She tried to reach whatever remained of the creature's human consciousness and convince her to abandon the path of destruction. The conversations revealed that the Queen had not lost her humanity through alien corruption, but through her own choices. She had embraced the Devourer philosophy because she believed it offered a solution to the suffering and death that plagued all organic life. Federation species reacted to the revelation in different ways depending on their cultures and philosophies. Some saw the Queen as proof that humans could not be trusted, while others viewed her as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked technological advancement. The divisions within the alliance deepened as each faction pursued its own interpretation of the threat. Admiral Krek seized control of Federation military forces and declared martial law across multiple star systems. He believed that strong central authority was needed to coordinate resistance against both the Devourers and potential human tyranny. His harsh methods included executing officials suspected of human collaboration and requisitioning resources without regard for civilian populations. The Admiral's actions pushed more species toward either complete submission to humans or open rebellion against all authority. Refugee fleets wandered between star systems seeking safe harbor, while criminal organizations profited from the chaos. Trade networks collapsed as ships were commandeered for military use, and entire economies failed under the strain of constant warfare. Taman found himself commanding not just human vessels but allied ships from dozens of different species. The mixed fleets required constant coordination between incompatible technologies and conflicting tactical doctrines. Some alien captains followed human orders without question, while others questioned every decision and demanded explanations that revealed classified information. The strain of managing such diverse forces while fighting an adaptive enemy pushed human commanders to their limits. They had to balance military necessity against political considerations while dealing with supply shortages and communication failures. Every battle became more difficult as the enemy learned from previous encounters and developed countermeasures. He-Jin's intelligence networks uncovered evidence that some Federation species were secretly negotiating with the Devourer Queen. They offered to betray human positions in exchange for being spared during the conquest phase. The deals were motivated by desperation and fear rather than genuine alliance, but they provided the enemy with crucial strategic advantages. The discovery of collaboration within their own ranks forced humans to implement security measures that further damaged relations with their allies. Surveillance and loyalty tests became standard procedure, while access to advanced technology was restricted to species that could prove their dedication to the cause. These actions confirmed the suspicions of those who believed humans sought to dominate rather than liberate. Ji-Hoon's research team finally developed a weapon that could affect Devourer ships across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The device required enormous amounts of energy and could only be used a limited number of times before burning out. Testing revealed that it could destroy individual enemy vessels, but would have minimal impact against large fleets. The tactical situation continued to deteriorate as Devourer forces adapted faster than human technology could evolve. Enemy ships began incorporating captured Federation technology into their designs, while human innovations became less effective with each battle. The war of attrition favored the side that could replace losses most quickly, and the Devourers had unlimited raw material in the form of consumed worlds. Minho made the difficult decision to retreat from several key systems to preserve his remaining forces. The strategic withdrawal allowed Devourers to capture important industrial worlds, but prevented the complete destruction of human and allied fleets. Critics accused him of cowardice, while supporters argued that preservation of military assets was essential for long-term victory. The retreat had devastating effects on civilian populations who were abandoned to face Devourer conquest alone. Billions of beings died as entire worlds were consumed, while their defenders fell back to more defensible positions. The moral cost of these decisions weighed heavily on human leaders who had promised to protect all life in the galaxy. The Devourer Queen began targeting human awakening centers on Earth in an attempt to prevent more humans from emerging from their long sleep. Her knowledge of human psychology and technology gave her advantages that no external enemy could possess. She understood their weaknesses and fears in ways that made her attacks devastatingly effective. The assault on Earth's underground cities forced humans to confront the possibility that their homeworld might fall to their ancient enemy. Evacuation. Plans were prepared while defensive systems were strengthened, but everyone knew that losing Earth would be a psychological blow from which humanity might never recover. The galaxy burned as three-way warfare consumed star system after star system. Humans fought Devourers while Federation factions fought each other, and everyone fought for survival in a conflict that seemed to have no possible resolution. The ancient enemy grew stronger with each victory, while their opponents grew weaker from internal divisions and resource depletion. Wu Jin Yang existed in all dimensions simultaneously as the first fully awakened human consciousness. His body had dissolved weeks ago, but his mind expanded beyond physical limitations to become something that transcended normal reality. HFY could see across time and space as patterns of energy and probability, while experiencing every possible future the galaxy might face. The transformation had been voluntary but irreversible. Wu Jin had merged with the quantum computers that had guided humanity through their long sleep and gained access to knowledge accumulated over 800,000 years. He understood now that the Great Sleep had not been rest but preparation for this exact moment when reality itself would become a battlefield. Mi Young Cho served as the voice of collective human consciousness, as billions of sleeping minds awakened to face their destiny. The underground cities became conduits for a shared awareness that spanned multiple star systems and existed across several dimensions at once. Individual humans retained their personalities and memories, but could access the combined knowledge and experience of their entire species. The awakening process accelerated as Devourer forces approached Earth's solar system. Humans who had slept for millennia opened their eyes to find a galaxy at war and an enemy that threatened all existence. But they also discovered that they had evolved far beyond anything their ancient selves could have imagined. They were no longer merely human, but something greater and more powerful. The final battle began in the space around Earth as Devourer fleets emerged from faster-than-light travel. The enemy had brought every ship and creature they possessed to destroy humanity's homeworld and end the threat to their cosmic dominion. The Queen herself commanded the assault from her moon-sized vessel, while lesser Devourers swarmed like locusts toward the blue planet. Human defenders met them in space that twisted and folded under the impact of impossible technologies. Ships that existed in multiple realities fought creatures that could consume matter and energy with equal ease. The battle took place across several dimensions simultaneously, as both sides used weapons that operated beyond normal physical laws. Minho Kang commanded the human fleet but found his role changing as the nature of warfare itself evolved. Traditional concepts like ships and weapons became inadequate to describe forces that could reshape reality through will alone. He became a focal point for human military consciousness, while retaining enough individual identity to make strategic decisions. The Devourer Queen revealed her true form as something that had once been human, but was now composed of pure destructive intent. She had spent millions of years perfecting the art of consumption and had become the living embodiment of entropy itself. Her presence caused stars to flicker and die while space-time warped around her like water flowing down a drain. She spoke to humanity through quantum communication networks and offered one final choice: join her in consuming the universe to fuel infinite growth and expansion, or face complete annihilation, along with every other form of life in existence. The Queen argued that her path was the only logical conclusion to evolution, and that resistance was futile against the forces of cosmic entropy. Wu Jin responded on behalf of all awakened human consciousness. He rejected the Queen's offer and explained that humanity had chosen a different form of transcendence. Rather than consuming everything, else they would sacrifice their own godlike power to preserve the possibility of growth and change for other species. True immortality came not from endless consumption, but from ensuring that life itself could continue to evolve and flourish. The philosophical debate became a battle fought with the fundamental forces of creation and destruction. Human consciousness wielded the power to create matter and energy from nothing, while Devourer will sought to reduce everything to primordial chaos. Stars were born and died in seconds as both sides demonstrated their mastery over cosmic forces. Young Hee-song led the diplomatic effort to unite all remaining Federation factions against the common enemy. She convinced former enemies that their differences were insignificant compared to the threat of total annihilation. Even Empress Zala abandoned her rebellion and brought her fleets to defend Earth when she realized that Devourer victory would mean the end of all independent existence. Admiral Krex coordinated Federation military forces with human command structures for the first time since the war began. The cooperation was difficult and imperfect, but necessary for survival against an enemy that sought to destroy every trace of organic life. Traditional fleet tactics became irrelevant as the battle evolved into something more like a cosmic storm than conventional warfare. Ji Hoon Park's research teams provided the theoretical framework that allowed humans to channel their expanded consciousness into effective weapons. They discovered that Devourers could be damaged not by destroying their physical forms but by attacking the concepts that gave them existence. The enemy could only survive as long as the universe contained beings capable of fear and despair. The tide of battle turned when humans demonstrated their ability to create pocket universes where different physical laws applied. They began moving endangered species and important cultural artifacts into these protected dimensions, while using others as staging areas for attacks that bypassed normal spacetime. The Devourers found themselves fighting on battlefields that shifted and changed according to human will. Haye Jin Lee coordinated the evacuation of civilian populations from war zones, while managing the complex logistics of interdimensional warfare. Billions of beings from hundreds of species were relocated to safe spaces created by human technology. The process required unprecedented cooperation between groups that had been enemies just months before. The Devourer Queen adapted her tactics and began targeting the quantum computers that linked human consciousness together. She understood that destroying the network would reduce humans to their individual limitations and make them vulnerable to conventional attack. Her forces launched coordinated strikes against hidden facilities, while she engaged the most powerful human minds in direct mental combat. Wu Jin found himself locked in a battle of wills with the Queen that took place across multiple realities simultaneously. She tried to corrupt his consciousness with visions of entropy and decay, while he countered with images of growth and renewal. The conflict caused ripples in space-time that affected the physical battle raging around Earth's solar system. The Queen revealed that she had been manipulating events for millions of years to bring about this confrontation. She had guided the evolution of both humans and Devourers to create the perfect conditions for her final victory. Every choice and every seeming coincidence had been part of a plan to gain ultimate power over all existence. But she had underestimated humanity's capacity for sacrifice and change. Wu Jin and the other awakened humans made a collective decision that surprised even themselves. Rather than fighting to preserve their individual existence, they chose to merge completely with the quantum substrate of reality itself. They became part of the fundamental structure of the universe, while retaining enough coherent consciousness to oppose the forces of destruction. The transformation gave humans power over the basic laws of physics, but at the cost of their physical existence. They became living concepts embedded in the fabric of space-time itself. The Devourers could no longer attack them directly because destroying them would require unmaking reality itself. The final confrontation took place in a space beyond normal dimensions where thoughts became matter and will determine the laws of physics. The Queen fought to impose her vision of universal entropy, while human consciousness defended the principle of continuing change and growth. The battle lasted microseconds in real time, but felt like eons to the participants. In the end, humanity won by making the ultimate sacrifice. They gave up their godlike individual power to ensure that other species could continue to exist and evolve. The Devourers were not destroyed but transformed into something harmless, by being integrated into the quantum structure of reality, where they could no longer cause damage. The Queen found herself facing a choice between accepting transformation or facing complete dissolution. She chose to retain some fragment of her existence by accepting integration into the new cosmic order. Her knowledge of destruction became balanced by humanity's commitment to preservation and growth. The galaxy emerged from the war forever changed. Humans existed now as invisible guardians embedded in the structure of reality itself. They could influence events when necessary, but chose to remain hidden most of the time. Other species were free to develop according to their own natures without interference or domination. Mi-Young Cho became the primary interface between human consciousness and the physical world. She retained enough individual identity to communicate with other species while serving as the voice of transcended humanity. Her messages brought hope and guidance to civilizations struggling to rebuild after the devastating war. The Federation was reformed as the Galactic Commonwealth, with new principles based on cooperation rather than dominance. Every species was guaranteed the right to develop according to its own nature, while contributing to the common good. Human technology was shared freely but with safeguards to prevent misuse.